Welcome back to the Boomerang Podcast. I'm Matt.
And I'm Drew.
And today we're going to give you an update on what's going on in Palestine and Israel, as well as an economic update, because a lot of this stuff really trickles down, right? The wars trickle down to what's happening in the economy, and I think that's, really what I think we want to discuss today. So what's been going on in Palestine is just yesterday there was a bomb that exploded in a hospital.
Yep.
Killed 500 people. Horrific. Of course, Israel's taking all the blame, and it looks as though
Well, what exactly
maybe
happened?
it wasn't Israel.
The hospital blew up, and what did both sides do?
I'm going to go with my instincts on this one.
You did it.
Yeah.
You did it. Yeah.
I
So
think
you're
we
going to
know
trust Hamas or you're going to trust Israel?
I look at it like this: is Justin Trudeau came out and he said he condemned the attack, right? And when you see Trudeau coming out and condemning it, and CNN and all these left-wing sites, right, versus let's say some of the sites we look at, Gateway Pundit, Breitbart. Gateway Pundit and Breitbart are the sites that have been right the whole time, right? Who's got real credibility here, right? Is it CNN? Is it MSNBC? No, it's going to be the sites that have been proven right for the last however long since Trump's really been in the race, right?
Right.
And beyond. But it's a horrific attack. I mean, there's a lot of people that died, women, children, any person dying is horrific. But, of course, Israel's getting all the blame, and that's forcing Iran to say, hey, we got to put sanctions on Israel. Right, so you can see it's really starting to escalate.
Yeah, and what I think, what you're seeing is the left-wing media really taking, Hamas says immediately, Israel did this, and then that's where the media is jumping in and condemning Israel, and, then you have China coming out saying, oh, this is horrific, as China has their own slaves, the Uyghurs, Uyghurs. Russia saying, oh, this is terrible, as they're, killing Ukrainians. Mm-hmm. So I think it's really hypocritical, but, I think it's funny in a sense that you see them salivating to be able to point the finger at Israel, and then here just a few hours later, you come out, and Israel says, no, here's evidence we didn't do it. They were actually shooting a rocket at us and hit their own hospital.
Right.
What savages, right? And it's just another reason why you can't listen to mainstream media, trust anything they say. There's always an agenda. There's no point to even watching them.
Yeah, I mean, what this is doing is it's creating tensions in the Middle East. This is going to very quickly push up oil prices, right? They're going to start putting embargoes and things of that nature. And this is going to trickle down to the economy. I mean, tell us a little bit about what's happening with the banks.
Yeah, well, I mean, just some economic news came out today. You look at the housing market, essentially just lack of inventory. Everything's moving very slow. I think, going back to, 2007, probably housing crisis, right? 2007, 2008, moving this slow. You also have the 10-year yield bonds that are creeping up, I think over, 5% now, or getting very close, which, in turn really is going to bring the market down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just today alone, I think, the Dow's, down 200 points or so. The markets are down. Gold's up. Outside of that, you also have the Dixie, the dollar, right? And that's touching about 106 right now. And a strong dollar, again, is going to make everything else go down in value,
right.
and especially when you're talking about markets. You look at when we really started printing money, about 2009, 10, 11 in there. And if you really follow the trend line from when we started printing money to where we're at now, you see about a 28% delta. And I think, as things slow down and money leaves the system, right, because of the high interest rates, I think there's a big opportunity that you're going to see a 20, 30% drop in the market.
Yeah.
Right. A couple other interesting things came out today, and you look at like United Airlines. So that's transportation, right? And they had one of the biggest drops, especially for an airline stock. It was a huge drop today, and now they'll blame it on, hey, we're missing out flights in the Middle East and Israel, right?
The cover story.
The price of oil has also gone up,
right? But
one other thing that they mentioned is just domestically, the travel within the United States is weakening, right? So what that tells me is that people are saving their money more, right? Now it's really hard for people to go from eating out every night to going back to eating ramen noodles, right? Once people start getting into a lifestyle, it's hard to revert back. However, we are building a lot of debt. A lot of consumers have a ton of debt. And so I just think that, we're going to have some tough times. You look at, the 100-year cycle of the Great Depression, we're about 5 years away. And, I think the next, 3 to 5 years, we're going to have a lot of issues.
Well, I think this becomes very real. Is that the banks are sitting on U.S. Treasuries, right? Their portfolios of all these investment firms are predominantly U.S. Treasuries.
Yeah.
Right? And what's happening with these is these things are going south. So the unrealized losses of these banks is, I think we just saw Bank of America today, their unrealized losses were $131 billion.
Right.
131 billion, and that's just the beginning.
Yep.
Right, and really, what the dynamic?
I think it's even more than that over the last 7
I'm sure.
quarters.
Oh yeah,
that's
probably a fraction of what they've been.
Yeah,
losing.
Almost $1 trillion.
And that bleeding is just going to continue. And the problem is, my understanding of how the dynamics between the stock market, the debt market all work is that the stock market really is driven from confidence. Right, it's confidence, and where's that confidence derived from? It's derived from the debt market. Right. So what the media is not doing is they're not talking about the problems in the debt defaults that are happening in the debt market, because that confidence would be eroded, and that's what's going to crash the stock market.
And another way to think of confidence really is liquidity.
Right.
And what you need in these markets is liquidity. And as the COVID money dries up, has the yields are going higher, has the interest rates for housing are touching 7-8%.
7-8%. Yep.
What you're seeing is the liquidity getting sucked out of the market, right?
Yep.
And I think what's really interesting, and the one thing that I really want the audience to understand is that, when the central banks around the world and the people that are in charge of money printing, they're buying more gold and silver right now than they ever have before.
Well, they know the end game.
So what's that tell you?
Yeah, they understand what's going to happen, right? They want
buy some gold and silver.
Right. They want to be made whole. So it's almost like you got to become your own central bank and do what they're doing.
Correct.
Emulate their maneuvers, right? And just become your own central bank at the end of the day. Because these banks, these institutions, it's almost like the system was designed where, okay, we'll buy up all the government debt, and it just F's the people.
Yep.
It just screws the people at the end through their own banks.
Yep.
So it's like, what are you going to do? And then, of course, the people depend on the government to reestablish the banks like they did in 2008. And it's just this whole cycle that's just never going to end. It's never going to end unless somebody steps in and ends it.
Yeah. And one thing about, when you're looking at charts and you're looking at the markets, they always revert to the means. And what I mean by that is, when you look at when we started quantitative easing, in the mid 2000s, what happened is, we pumped a lot of artificial money into the system, and, the market couldn't act how it normally would have in those times, right? And as we've done that over the last 10 years, you're seeing this balloon in the market. And what I think is going to happen
that's what the market is, the big balloon.
Is we're going to revert back to, the time before quantitative easing,
right.
And from where we're at now to where that point is, and that's where I come up with a 20-30% drop in the markets, is
probably
because
much bigger than that.
Because it took that much money to get it to balloon up 20-30%.
Yep.
And so I think that we have a pretty steep fall back down to reality.
Yeah, well, I think it's also an opportunity for people. When the debt market, and unfortunately the news doesn't become real unless you hear it on MSNBC or Fox News, right? But if you're looking at the stuff behind the scenes, the stuff that's not being reported, once that debt market explodes, that's going to crash the stock market, and that money doesn't just disappear. It's going to flow somewhere. Where's it going to flow to? It's going to flow to the commodities.
Yep.
Right? So that's why you want to position yourself in something like gold or silver or oil, right? Because that's a place where the money's going to flow to, and probably the prices are going to be much higher by the time that happens.
Yep. We have an opportunity to talk to a lot of stock traders, right? A lot of investors. And when they're coming to me and they're saying, hey, we're getting out of the market and we're going into commodities, just as a broad, group, we're going into commodities. The next couple of years are going to be commodities heavy.
Yep.
Get out of, almost everything else and make sure you're into commodities. And when people are coming in, they're essentially, in a way doing our pitch for us, because it's true. That's the fact of the matter is we have a lot of issues coming up. We are not going to be able to print our way out of this, and once that money printing officially really stops and the liquidity's dried up, we're going back down.
Yep.
And just think of all the wealth that's evaporating, right? All the wealth that people have right now that's just going to evaporate over a short period of time, and that's really scary. And that's why you got to protect yourself. You got to be your own bank. You got to take self custody of your money, of your gold, of your crypto, whatever it may be, and not be at the mercy of these central banks and just banks in general.
Yeah, especially with a lot of the de-dollarization around the world. All that money's flowing back to the U.S. That's going to saturate our money supply, create massive inflation, right? The real inflation statistics are probably, multiple times higher than what the government's admitting, right? So they're really just acting kind of behind the scenes, right? They're doing stuff behind the scenes and not telling anybody about it. And everybody's just saying.
You have Janet Yellen coming out a few days ago where they're asking her, can we afford to have another war?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Jerome Powell's over there printing the money machine, It's like, come on.
These are the clowns running our system. So exit that system. Don't play in it, right? Don't play by their rules. Get the hell out of the way. Don't trust your banks. Don't trust your government. Don't trust anybody, because that's what's really happening right now. I think it's almost like Trump's operating from the sidelines, where what he's doing is he's breaking the trust between people and their government, people and their banks. Right. And to my understanding, and this is just what I've heard through the grapevine, but this country will go into bankruptcy. And that's, to my understanding, when Trump will enter back into office, that is.
And they'll call it a depression.
Yeah, but whatever the case may be, and what he's going to do, to my understanding, is walk this country through bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Right? So anything you have, any exposure you have there, consider it gone. right? Maybe you recoup 10 or 20% of your money when everything's said and done.
Yeah, yeah, and you never know when you're going to be able to actually get that money, right? Where's the liquidity coming from?
Could be years.
They might owe it to you, but who knows when you're actually going to be able to get it? And then at that point, what's your money going to be able to buy, right?
Exactly.
If we continue to have inflation, which turns into stagflation, which is the worst case scenario, and how much you went to the grocery store this weekend? You were just telling me
eggs were $9.
Unbelievable.
Swear to God, $9 for a dozen.
And that
eggs.
only was the organic eggs.
It was the organic eggs, yes, but even just the regular eggs were $8.
Yeah, it's
$8. Yeah,
it's crazy,
absolutely absurd. So, and that's what the central banks really try to do is they try to hide the inflation in food prices because they know that when people go to the grocery store, they see that stuff. So now it's almost like when you go to the grocery store and you see these crazy prices on everything.
Yep.
You're kind of at the end because you know that the central banks want to keep that type of inflation away from you, the food inflation. And once you start seeing that, you're getting very close to something.
Yeah, very close. And I mean, it's just, I went through McDonald's. I always get the number 3 breakfast, the bacon, egg, and cheese, right? And I feel like it used to cost me like $5, and it's like I checked out today, it was $13. I'm like, my Lanta.
For the breakfast?
For the breakfast. For,
Jeez.
with a hash brown and a coffee, it's just like unbelievable. So, I filled up with gas. It was over $5. It was $5.50, It cost me $95 to fill up my Jeep.
Damn, Jimmy, I would have been good with some Taster's Choice. You had to go get this gourmet expensive shit.
Because I like the way my coffee tastes. So funny.
Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, everything you're going to continue to see prices going up. I would expect that trend to continue for as long as this, everything plays out. The war is just the cover story for what's really going on in the economies. They need something to explain away why the whole financial system collapsed. So I think we're getting very close, right? When you start, like I said, when you start seeing it in places like the grocery store, that's when you're very close to them actually admitting what's going on.
Right. And what they typically do every time this happens is they start a new war. War tends to be good for the economy, build things up. I don't know if that's always true, but that's what I feel like they tend to do a lot in times of economic uncertainty is all of a sudden we're in a new war.
Well, what's interesting is we saw that FDIC video from November, I think it was November 22nd.
We don't have the money.
Yeah, we don't
hide
have
the market signals.
I don't know who got the footage. It's incredible footage. You could put in FDIC, go to Google, put in FDIC Infowars. Infowars had the video. Right, and what's nice about what Infowars did was they took a 3-hour meeting and gave you the segments that were pertinent. But these guys in this FDIC board meeting, it's all the top people. They're like, hey, we have to hide what's going on in the banks so that there's not a run on the banks.
Right, because if people knew
what was going on,
everybody would go get their bank, and then it would just
and then 2 months later, you saw Silicon Valley Bank going under.
Yeah.
So these people are,
which I believe they allowed that bank to go under.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it was also a crypto bank. And Operation Choke Point is it was a crypto friendly bank, and it's let that one fail in a sense. So
and they had depositors that were favorable to them that they wanted to bail out.
Yeah. Well, and they also bailed out like Chinese depositors, right? Like what? Whatever. That's a whole nother show.
China runs everything.
It's a whole nother show.
Yeah, a whole nother show. But just see the writing on the wall. For us, it's just another day at the office. But for most people out there, they're not paying attention to this stuff, and this is being kept behind the scenes, right? This is what I think we're trying to convey is that this is the information that's being kept behind the scenes that no one's reporting on or directly reporting on. And you really have to seek out this information, make sense of it, and just understand that, hey, we can't predict the date, right?
Right.
We don't know when this is going to happen, right? But it's going to happen.
We're not financial analysts. This isn't financial advice.
Exactly.
Do your own research. But when you start seeing SUVs selling brand new for $100,000, something's up. Inflation's going through the roof.
Yep.
Pinch your pennies. Don't buy a new car. Prepare for what's coming down the pike and have something tangible outside of their system to fall back on so you're not starting from scratch.
Absolutely. And then I think also just one other thing I want to touch on is, just kind of the importance of truckers, right? A lot of people don't give truckers the credit that they deserve. But I mean, the truckers in this country are the lifeblood, right? They're the ones that get food to the grocery stores, et cetera.
And a few of the big trucking companies that I saw today, economically, their stocks are down again with the transportation having an
Yellow
issue.
went out, right? A couple of the major trucking lines, they went bankrupt. So this is just another area where you want to prepare. You want to make sure you have enough food, water, all that kind of stuff on hand because, hey, if the truckers are out of business, let me tell you something. You're not going to be able to go to your grocery store and get a damn thing.
Correct.
Right? So it's not just the financials you want to protect. It's also just, your everyday life, your comforts, right? Being able to get up and have breakfast or have dinner, right? So just, keep these things in mind. This is really, we're getting close. And unfortunately, the media is not going to tip you off to this stuff. But we will.
Yeah,
we will. We'll do our best. So other than that, anything you want to add?
No, I think we about covered it. Appreciate the time. Yeah. And, any comments or, questions you guys have, please put them below. We love to help answer those.
Absolutely.
But other than that, Matt, why don't you sign us out?
So if you could give us also a like, share, and a subscribe. We're still new to this, so we want to get ourselves out there. Do that for us, right? Give us a thumbs up. But yeah, we'll see you in the next episode, and thanks for tuning in.
Cheers.